Go back and look at emails. Calls to order. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First on the agenda is the approval of minutes. What comments or concerns are there? If any? If none, we can have a motion to approve. Motion to approve. And a second. Then there's a ordinance amendment about murals as part of the sign standards ordinance. H, do you wanna?
Yes, so this is a draft that's over a year ago, we had a staff discussion on did we need to have a graffiti ordinance when part of it started on 107. And then that turned to no, that could be treated as with another state statute. Then recently, a mural popped up downtown that was then painted over. So we looked at again at, is there a way? And as knowing that several more murals are coming up in town, is there a need for a mural ordinance that looks at maintenance and an application process or an approval process that doesn't look at content or regulating art? So the town board was going to bring it up as on an agenda, and I requested that we let staff try to come up with a draft and then send it to the planning board and see if we could get at a solution if there was an issue before sending it to the board. So this is the first stab at a draft ordinance. It came from another town and then part with a little bit added from two application approval processes for downtown groups.
Can you enlighten us as to where the initial issue was or is? It got painted over.
So it's on Mill Street at a building that is kind of catty corner to the street.
Got to be old
Sylva Underground is underneath it,
Yeah.
right in Dixie Bay.
Yes.
store.
Yes, so it's been painted over, but in looking at the overall issue of a sign versus a mural, and then mural maintenance, those are two things I think that stand out as something that if there needs to be a regulation, it needs to start there. Then the third one is, and I don't know if there is even a way to regulate this, but the location of the mural, looking at that one, it went in what would be their most prominent sign location. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be considered, but all this is just the starting point.
So the murals, I want to call them murals, that are currently on buildings. One that's, or two that are against social Sylva building, right?
Mhm.
And then the one that's on what used to be the health food store across from Walgreens.
Mhm.
Were done just because the owners of those buildings wanted them done. There was no follow-up, they just did them.
The social Silva one was done with the Main Street program received a grant. So it had outside funding sources. I don't know whether it was the property owner or the business owner that did the one on the side of the health food store.
There was no application process for the.
Correct. Yeah.
Just Ward on that building where the welcome to Sylva is.
Yes.
So,
And then that one was also a grant.
okay, so it really went between the property owner and the person who wanted to do it,
As it
as it should.
I don't know how you regulate this, like, because it's art. I mean, murals are fact art, so you can't say, I mean, so say we approve it and it goes to the board, they're gonna have to approve every mural that comes through. Because
maybe
it's a
not,
first,
yeah.
well, no, because it's a First Amendment.
If you approve, okay, so let's say, first off, the planning board has the ability to say, we don't want an ordinance on this. Let's scrap. You can also change any part of, like, we don't want an approval process that goes to the board. That's an option.
I can see, you know, right now, basically the town doesn't know about it except like, just like having ears on what happens in the town, like Bernadette knows business owners, and so she becomes aware, right? And it hasn't been a huge problem yet, but it would be in the interest of the town to know that these things are happening. And like, there is, I think one of the things that, not just the graffiti art thing, but the Egyptian lady, like, you want to get a release from the artist so that we can use pictures of the town on websites and stuff. So it would be nice to be able to have that as part of the approval process, or to know if it's, you know, am I right? Or to know if it's going to be okay to include that in pictures of the town on websites for promotional materials.
It's, I mean, because you have to do that for the buildings, like if you use, or, you know, say Sylva Social or so. If that building's used, like, and say an ad for Sylva or Ward's building, do you have?
So we did start, when we ran into that issue with that one, we started an approval process of, you have this mural, are you, and the chamber, the TVA, and the town / Main Street worked on an agreement to, if we use this, we want you to sign if you agree to let us use this in promotional materials, brochures, website photographs, that kind of videos, that kind of.
I would like to say that I feel like this should be maybe, if it's going to be something that's passed or that we decide to do, that it should fall under a much broader scope of town building beautification. This should fall into a building facade checklist or points, you know, because if someone's gonna have a mural, fine, but they've got, say they put this, spend all this money, put on a mural, but then they've got paint chipping off their building, they got broken glass on a window, they've got an awning that's dilapidated and falling apart, but they don't care to fix that. Be okay with that, so that's kind of where I stand. I feel like it's hard to say, okay, we're gonna just focus on murals, but not anything else.
Well, there are different parts of the ordinances that deal with signs, with awnings, with like the facades, of the buildings, what materials are acceptable, yeah. You know, like what materials are acceptable for the outsides of the building?
exterior materials, yeah.
Yeah.
like being, because the building's already there, like there's nothing on like. Your paint's chipping off, you need to paint your building, or your gutters are dripping into the street, your
I mean, I
grease trap is
is-
leaking from down
Is
on
there?
the side.
Some of these things.
But
Yes,
who regulates that?
well, yeah, it's kind of an honor system, but we don't have a lot of leeway for enforcement.
Suggestions. I have some problems. I have three problems.
Mhm.
One is, if this had been in place, I don't think we'd have the rainbow you belong to mural. Because especially now, under the current political climate, they find a way to say no. So that bothers me. Because there are two under the design criteria points that give the board the power to do that. One is D. It says under 4D, the town and board of commissioners may from time to time by resolution adopt additional criteria and guidelines for design. So they can willy-nilly pick or decline or whatever they want, and just by their own resolution. So that gives them incredible power to censor or to restrict artistic expression, I think. And the other thing that a part of this, the bottom thing, is under G, where it says fees, application fee and or permit issuance. The Board of Commissioners may set the fee for the mural application and or permit issue. Well, does that vary for applicant to applicant, or is it a standard fee? Is there some kind of?
So it would, if there was a fee, it would be specified in the fee schedule, but there doesn't have to be a fee. That's another thought.
Okay, it sounds like they can make it whatever. And does it have to conform to an existing fee schedule that we have?
It would be added to the fee schedule if there was one. And a lot of times a fee is something, for instance, the Christmas parade, that's not in the fee schedule, but that's not an ordinance. So, but we charge an entry fee to just guarantee that you are filling out the application and you're reading it, basically.
Like to use Bridge Park, it's like $100.
Yes.
And-
$30
Okay,
for 2 hours.
okay, so that's there no matter who wants to use it.
Right.
And could they say, no, you can't use it, even though you have $30?
No.
They can't. So I would like to see some kind of restriction on that, but then if this were to pass, otherwise I think it gives them carte blanche to charge whatever they want and say yes or no to whoever they feel like. And I don't want.
I think another thing that would be very prone to subjective judgment is the historical significance. Part of the design criteria. I mean, that's pretty vague. It could be open to interpretation, very, very strict interpretation or very wide interpretation. And does it need to be something of historical significance, or could it be something that?
Well, to your point, what level here is not necessarily in my opinion, a historical.
No,
Right, neither are the
I mean,
wings.
we could interpret it in a way, because.
I guess it's in the eyes of the beholder.
yeah.
Um,
Does that mean we have some more Sylva Sands put up?
so for D.
It's historical.
Yeah. Yeah, there's parts of history we wouldn't necessarily want to highlight. In
Yes.
promoting
Yeah.
the town, for sure.
I think personally, if whoever owns that building where Dixie Mays is, I don't know if the artist asked them to do this, or they just did it. And then there was an outcry, and so they painted it over. But if the building owner and the artist come to an agreement with some kind of stipulation about, you know, maintaining it or whatever. I think it's none of our business. If it's offensive, I suppose we could say, okay, now that's offensive or whatever, and we could, but I mean, that was the first one. The other one was on a Jersey barrier, right, that graffiti, where Dunkin' Donuts used to be.
or retaining walls.
The retaining wall, okay, yeah, I mean, that's clearly graffiti and that's not. And then they call it artistic expression.
paid.
It's not.
The artist to do that one that looks like graffiti. So it was between the building owner and that they just didn't get it approved. They didn't see the artwork beforehand.
So who made them paint it over?
Nobody,
I think they decided they chose to,
Cause they got.
because they didn't like it.
Once it was done, they didn't like it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not that they got a lot of flack.
They, the owner of the building.
The business.
The business.
But I think in discussing this, we need to stick to the ordinance before us and it's specific.
Yeah.
Let's not
There is this
call out
one thing that
artists.
perhaps highlighted the need for it. I mean, again, if it has not happened a whole lot,
No,
is it necessary to have an ordinance for it?
Well, I think if anything, like we say, you could say that the paint has to be outdoor paint, like you can kind of have stipulations, but as far as like the subject matter and fees, I don't know that. I feel like it's.
I want you to explain, because I'm agreeing with you. I want you to talk more about First Amendment. Well, but you did mention
Right,
that this was freedom of expression or
Right.
free, you know, censoring art is dangerous.
Right.
And so talk about that in terms of this. I mean, do you believe that this does that?
Well, no, I feel like this is basic, this wouldn't be on us, like. But if it's put in front of the town board
Correct,
and they have to vote on it,
correct.
they're not gonna be able to say no to anything that comes through.
well, if
For
they,
that
if
reason,
they look at A, they could twist that around to refuse a lot of stuff.
but I feel like if we put like if we say we approve this and putting restrictions on it, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert in the First Amendment rights or the Constitution in general, and I don't know that we need to get into all that, but I'm just saying, like, just stifling art or creativity of any sort, putting guidelines on it, I don't know that.
I served on the legislature in New Hampshire for a couple of terms and this is an example, prime example of what we got to call legislation by anecdote. And it was always frowned upon. Basically, one thing happens and suddenly you've got this bill in front of you. And it all comes back to this one thing that stimulated the bill. And it's like, well, you don't try to do, because then we get in, as soon as you start to legislate by anecdote, all these other things come.
Well, and I don't know how it works, like say for instance, a neighborhood that has an HOA. That says you can't paint your house this color or this, you can only have these. So that works because people are buying into, they know that going into it, so then we're putting this in after the fact. I don't know how it works for a town.
Yeah.
I just think this opens a can of worms.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that it touches on a couple potentially problematic fields, like free expression being one, property rights being another. So I think I can see the purpose of having the ordinance so that the town is aware of murals. But just to make sure that we're not infringing on those like the least possible amount.
Does signage have to be approved? Like when someone has through the town,
Yeah.
like for their building signage?
So they fill out a sign permit with, it's got a concept of what it looks like,
Right.
size.
But that's not, I mean, that's.
That's not something the town
Right,
board
so-
has to vote on, right? Or any public art stuff, does the town board vote on that?
not unless it is used with, not unless public art funds are used for it.
Okay.
Like the,
It's the Sylva mural.
yeah, the Sylva Coast Guard mural went before the Public Art Committee and then the board
Right. That was a grant given
to the town.
to the town, so. I mean, what I was trying to say is if there's like a sign. Ordinance, like, if someone's getting a new sign, like, that would be a way to kind of keep track of what. Is coming through, like, but not necessarily saying you can't do it. But just knowing, I don't know, if knowing's half the battle, or.
So it's saying like cover it under the sign permit, change it to a
Well,
sign
I
annual
don't-
permit.
I don't think that's gonna
No,
fly.
I don't think administrative approval like a sign is in the same as this. I think it's hard to make it fit in a sign.
Cause that's only by like. The size, really, there's no perimeters on
Right, it's more,
graphics or like the art of a sign.
yeah.
So also with the town board approval, the town board cycles through people, every couple years. And it would be nice if we did have an ordinance to have something that would result in a consistent application of the mural criteria.
Right.
Which I think if ever all of them get submitted to the board for approval, it's not gonna be consistent from board to board. Whereas the staff for the town are consistently here for years. And with the help of the Main Street Association and the design. Is the design committee like part of the mainstream association?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
one of their committees.
Yeah, so like with a combination of the board and the Main Street and the design committee, would that be enough to make a judgment on whether a mural is? I mean, just to say like. Give them feedback on ways they might improve it. Or how it may or may not fit into the spirit of the town. But to, and to keep the, offensive things from being put up. But not to really judge what is art necessarily.
Yeah, I like that approach of going through a couple of town committees that are interested in this and not a board that might have interested in agendas.
Well, and they vary from
Right.
board to board, and so it could end up being kind of a mishmash. I just would be wanting something that would be consistent.
I mean, like the garden club, do they work with the town? Or the downtown beautification board or something before they do all their flowers? Is that, I mean, not for approval, just for like recommendation.
There is a plant ordinance, isn't there? Like the plants have to.
There's
be
a native plant ordinance. But generally, the garden club is saying, we're gonna fill the planters on this week. Will you have them cleaned out, or the baskets on the bridges, or we want to adopt this area in a park, or this section on Mill Street. It's more of a,
And they go.
we volunteer to do it,
Then they go
and
before the town board to do that? They just do it.
it's usually through staff.
Who's that?
But a lot of those relationships have been in place a long time, so they
Yeah.
could have
This is.
30 years ago gotten board approval, and
Yeah.
now it's talking to us about when they're gonna be replanted or.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think.
not controversial.
Just if we could simplify it where it's just more of just the awareness of, hey, I'm gonna, have this painted on my property or on my building. But not necessarily, like she said, really a judgment of the piece itself, but just so the town is aware of what's gonna happen before it just pops up. But I don't know that every piece of art needs to be approved by the town board necessarily. I think that might be a little cumbersome.
Yeah, it would
But
be
just-
cumbersome,
yeah.
inconsistent. Yeah.
Just so we know maybe a little, the fee part, like a little small application fee, like, hey, I'm gonna put this on my building. This is, you know, what it's gonna look like, but not necessarily like a, you know, 2 pages of it's gotta meet this and that and this, and, you know. But just so we know.
Another benefit of it going through the Main Street Association is that a lot of the buildings downtown are historic buildings, and so there are certain criteria that that it's good for them to meet, like if they're having something painted on it, you don't necessarily want to just slap something up there. And like having the Main Street Association involved would help them be more aware of that. And
maintenance
have a
too.
quality piece put up that's not going to impair their ability to benefit in the future, like tax benefits or whatever, for being an historic building.
And who's on the Main Street Association?
I don't know all the members, but Bernadette
But how would they
Peters.
become members? They just volunteer?
So they have criteria where a certain percent has to be business owners, property owners. And then it's a national Main Street program. And then North Carolina has a very strong state program that meets those standards. So it's an accreditation piece of different kinds of partners that can make up your membership.
I'd like to see that route because it leads to a larger umbrella of simple concerns and it takes it out of the direct political influence.
Yeah. They wouldn't necessarily be able to get them outright stop them from putting up a mural, but
That would also prevent people from feeling like they're being picked on, that someone else's art was approved and theirs wasn't.
right. Mhm.
But they're not approving the art. They're just, right?
Exactly.
They're reviewing it and giving feedback, yeah. So that's an option.
I like that option.
That would be a much more scaled back version of.
Well, it's not like this is been a common issue, so I don't think it needs to be any more complex than that. Just letting us know, letting the town know what, your plan is.
So are we saying that scrapping this document?
Is that even for us to decide that it goes to Main Street?
And we're recommending that it go another route,
Mhm.
and that other route should be some guidance from that group.
I think it should be between the property owner, the artist, and the
Yeah.
Main Street Association.
Yeah.
And they meet together. And are there any other downtown group? Oh, it's tourists, that's not the same thing, is it? It's another.
There are other, I mean, there's the Jackson County Art Council, there's the
Trying to
the
think of-
chamber, there's the Sylva Art and Design Committee. But the Main Street Sylva Association is,
That's probably the most correct.
Yeah, that one is part of the
it
town.
would fit,
Yeah,
yeah.
that to me would make more sense. Keep it.
But it would benefit the town to know, like Bernadette was mentioned, that there was 2 places that were gonna put murals up, and they were very similar murals, like they were dealing with the same sort of subject matter and kind of like the same sort of idea, so
Whoever
like.
gets it up first.
Because she learned about both of those, she could tell them like, oh, hey, wait a minute, it's gonna look weird for you to have 2, of these similar sort of subject materials, so like, oh, of course, we'll come up with something else. And that benefits the town to
more people are involved who have a stake. The business
Mhm.
owners.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and this is a good discussion, this is a good thing to happen because, you know, 2017, when we got the grant for the Sylva mural, there were not very many murals. And we were trying to, so there was a public art committee to try to get additional art and figure out how to fund it. And now there are there's the public side of it, and then there are lots of private property owners that are wanting to do murals. And more art is a good thing for a vibrant town, so.
Just takes one.
I think that, yeah, I mean, I love them. There's not really, I mean, I even like the Sylva graffiti one, but.
I couldn't figure out.
You
what
can
it-
see how it could have been done better, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't particularly love the
But not
colors,
the
but I was like.
content and the art.
That's what I'm talking about. Right.
So.
That's-
Okay.
I hope for cooperation rather than control.
First of all, do we think this is a good time for this ordinance? Do we think we need this ordinance at this
Would it
point?
still be an ordinance? I guess it,
If you had a permit process, I think you would need an ordinance for that. But I think because of the potential, rights issues, we want to make sure we have like the best possible document that doesn't infringe on those rights as much as possible. So I think it takes some more work in that. Do we want to make a recommendation as the board not to do the ordinance at all? First of all,
Well, this is a draft.
or to delay?
Was it gonna go up to them? They had a date of October.
Yes, so we had thought if this was gonna be like simple revisions, that it could go to the town board
Okay.
in October. But that's not to say that it has to.
Seems like what I'm hearing is that we're leaning that this is not a document that we want to move forward to the board.
right,
I don't,
Yeah, we do not recommend.
Right, and that's a motion at some point,
Mhm.
then that takes it off the table. And then this body could make another motion that it goes somewhere else.
Well,
needs to be redrafted.
we
Yeah,
could,
exactly.
we could say like, we don't recommend. Tell me if I'm wrong in this, but this is my understanding. We could say like, we do not recommend moving forward with this document. Like to send it back to staff for reconsideration. Coming up with a new draft that would have much more limited scope. Like, is that something that
That would be more like an application process.
application and review, but remove a lot of the parts that are more vague and subjective that could lead to town government deciding what's art and what is not.
right,
And removing that could also have the benefit of having consistency over the years when there's not the board switching back and forth.
and the Main Street Association will change too. But
Yeah, it's more stable though.
how many people are on it?
I think their bylaws says, unless they've changed, it was something like between 7 and 11.
Okay,
It's a good spell.
so that would be the substitute document that I would hope we could draft or put together, is that direct the mural application, mural process to the Main Street Association, the property owner, the artist. And, so the town knows what's coming.
Yeah, go through an application and review process, but
Yeah.
not an up or down vote.
No, and
Is that something that Main Street Sylva Association
Yes, well, they've got a design committee and when we were looking for ordinances, there are more application processes and guidelines for murals than there are actual ordinances. I mean, that varies state to state, but there are a ton of downtown revitalization programs that have probably all dealt with this in one way or another, whether they. And they're like the program has a lot of resources too for rules and guidelines of how you develop things like this.
That's the direction I'd like to see as well. As a town meetings.
I'm sorry, I'm just back again. So we are, sounds like we're moving towards dismissing this document for whatever the reasons are.
So moved.
And then are we also making a motion that a new document that will include provisions or criteria or
Yeah,
guidelines that would be between the owner of property, the artist, and the
Main Street.
yes, so
I mean, in town staff, could also.
So what we could do is similar to what you and I discussed on our initial talk, Melissa, was planning board could say that you're not ready to make a recommendation on this ordinance, that you're it's clear this is not the one.
Right.
That a new one needs to be drafted, and then that draft needs to either go to this board for approval or recommendation to then go to the Main Street Board. That delays it timeline wise, but then gives us more direction of staff pulling together an application process that the planning board has more experience looking at approval processes than the Main Street Board. That's
And with this delay and with this additional input,
being
we could
your-
come up with hopefully come up with like a stronger document that would be less potentially controversial. But as the planning board, we're only making a recommendation, correct? We have no actual.
Well,
Do appreciate being asked.
the say is
I do.
at getting something that is a better document that serves its purpose,
Yes,
whether.
exactly.
But
Better, more limited document that serves the purpose. If one can become.
Yeah, the purpose.
second.
Yeah. Specified.
Do you feel like that would be a workable thing moving forward?
yes, I think, because I do want the planning board's input in this, because this is more along the lines of, I mean, if design and historic preservation are right under the Main Street program's purview. But the planning board has reviewed lots of application and approval process type issues that generally aren't what goes to the Main Street. But I do think that is a good play. Well, and it was in there that's where the first review of the application would start. But I guess what I'm saying is coming up with the bones of it for approval is more like what the planning board looks at.
Mhm. Is everybody, how does everybody feel about referring it back to staff in that way that we're talking about?
So do we need to make a motion on this document? As it sits before us, do we have to?
I don't think so. I think it could be.
You're just
Yeah.
making a
You just
recommendation.
need a motion to do what you're asking us
Yeah.
to do.
A motion to come up with that recommendation.
A better one that's more, application and review rather than an ordinance.
So there's no like imminent project that somebody's wanting to do that is why they wanted, or why October 9th was this document.
There are some things coming up.
There are murals coming up, but our hope is that there will always be some
Right.
coming up. So generally, that time frame is tight because it's usually like if the planning board recommends something, then we try to get it to the town board for approval as soon as possible. And they approve ordinances their evening meetings because they require public hearings. But a lot of times issues that the planning board is looking at need a fast approval, like, when we look at conditional use permits for housing complexes where they're under, a due diligence period of a certain number of days and they need a decision. So usually that's why it's the next.
Right.
And wordsmith, yeah.
Do I need to reiterate all that or?
Yes, sir.
I think,
Yeah.
I think we got it.
Got it.
Okay. Take a vote on that. All right, let's have a vote. Can I read who's for moving forward with this recommendation?
Oh, recommendation is.
Yeah, not this.
Not this.
Yes. I was like, what, Jeffrey, what apart? Anyone opposed?
Thanks, Ron. We will meet in October. We have an application for a zoning map amendment.
Just. What? You're all.
I'm voting that amendment.
Yes,
What do we have now? Sorry.
for a zoning map amendment.
Next month.
October, what?
It's always 20. Same. Fourth Thursday. Fourth Thursday, yeah. Fourth Thursday, fourth.
So on 23rd, yeah. 5 o'clock.
So I have two things, but I don't know if they should be aired or not.
Okay.
So I would probably err on not airing. Sorry to say.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else want to bring up anything, business for the planning board? Can I get a motion to close the meeting?
So move.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.